Our Br'er rabbit outsmarted the frogs. Told in lots of different versions. This was included in the book of African American folk tales. This is Jackie Torrance's telling. Back in the days when animals could talk, there lived an old Br'er the rabbit. He was a fine fisherman who could go down to the river, drop his line into the water, and inside of 10 minutes he could have 25 fish resting right there on the bank beside him. Br'er the rabbit's good friend, Brother Raccoon, couldn't catch fish at all. And he didn't like fish. He liked frogs instead. So Brother Coon would go down to the river carrying a tow sack. He'd sneak up behind a frog, grab him, and drop him in the bag. When the sack was full, he'd go home, open the door, and there would be his wife standing there waiting for him. "Oh, good," she'd say. "You brought home a great big passel of frogs. I'm so happy." Well, one day, the frogs called a great big frog meeting because they were tired of them being caught by Brother Coon. They all agreed they had to do something to keep the raccoon from catching them. They decided to put a lookout frog on duty on the bank. They needed some frog with good eyes, good hearing, and a good loud voice to warn them. They elected the bullfrog. The bullfrog would sit on the bank and watch for Brother Coon. When Brother Coon would get within a half a mile of the river, the bullfrog would call out, "Here he comes, here he comes, here he comes." And the little frogs along the river would peep, "Here he comes, here he comes, here he comes." Now when Brother Coon arrived at the riverbank, there wasn't a frog in sight. And he couldn't swim, so he couldn't go after them. When he got home with that empty tow sack, there would be his wife waiting for him. "You done come home with an empty tow sack?" she would demand. "Well, I can't catch them frogs," Brother Coon would answer. "They're all too wild to catch. Every time I get within a half a mile of the riverbank, every frog around yells, 'Here he comes, here he comes, here he comes,' and I can't catch a single frog." Well, that would make his wife very mad. And she'd pick up the broom and chase him around the house. "We're all going to starve to death," she hollered. "Get back down there and catch them frogs." One morning, Brother Coon left his house with a bump on his head and an empty tow sack. And he met Brother Rabbit coming up the road. The Brother Rabbit had been fishing, and he had a string of fish hanging down his back. "Well, howdy do, Brother Coon," said the rabbit. "How are you?" "I ain't doing so good," said Brother Coon. "Well, you look right down in the mouth," said the rabbit. "It ain't my mouth I'm down in," said Brother Coon. "See this bump on my head? My wife gave that to me with a broomstick." "Well, why did she do that?" "I can't catch no frogs." "Can't catch frogs?" asked Brother Rabbit. "Why, there are 1,000 frogs down there at the river." "I can't catch 'em. I go halfway down the river and all I hear is 'Here he comes, here he comes, here he comes.' By the time I get there, they're all in the water." "Well, sir," said Brother Rabbit, "you needs a plan." "I don't know nothing about planning," said Brother Coon. "Don't you worry," said Brother Rabbit. "I'm the best planner that ever planned a plan. I've just got to sit here in the road for a while and think one up for you." The rabbit sat back on his hind legs and put his ears up. First he scratched one ear with one hind leg, and then he scratched the other ear with the other hind leg, and then he hopped up and said, "I've got you a plan." "What is it?" asked Brother Coon. "Well, sir, come over here. I don't want anybody to hear it." And they moved closer to each other. And Brother Rabbit looked all about, and he said, "This here's your plan. Go on down to the river, and when you get there, fall down and play dead like Brother Possum." "Then what do I do?" asked Brother Coon. "You don't do nothing. Just lay there and don't move for nothing. Don't move till I tells you to move," said Brother Rabbit. "Well, that's a wonderful plan," said Brother Coon, walking toward the river. "I don't understand it, but it's a wonderful plan." Just as Brother Coon got about a half a mile from the river, he could hear the bullfrog start up. "Here he comes, here he comes, here he comes." And the little frogs peeped. "Here he comes, here he comes, here he comes." Brother Coon went down on the riverbank and commenced to die. "Ah!" he groaned. groaned. "I'm dying of starvation. I ain't had no frogs to eat for days and days. Oh, I'm dead." And he fell on his back, stuck his feet straight up in the air, and kicked about 9 times. He just lay there like he was dead. Even when the sun came out and he commenced to sweat, he didn't move an inch. Then the flies came in and landed on Brother Coon. They walked all around on his tummy and around on his face and in and out of his nose. And their little feet tickled and tickled, but he did not move. The sun went on down and flies went away in the evening breeze. Along the trail came Brother Rabbit, strutting up to the riverbank. He stopped at the sight of Brother Coon, and looking to make sure the frogs had popped their eyes above the water and were watching him, he commenced to cry. He cried, "My best friend, old Brother Coon, has done fell dead." Well, the frogs came crawling out of the water to take a look at the dead raccoon. The bullfrog said, "That be good, that be good, that be good." The little frogs peeped. "That be good, that be good, that be good." "Oh, well, sir," said Brother Rabbit, "I guess I better get to digging his grave. I promised him years ago I'd bury him when he passed on and bury him here in his favorite place, right here by this river." And the bullfrog said, "Let us dig it, let us dig it, let us dig it." And the little frogs peeped, "Let us dig it, let us dig it, let us dig it." "Well, sir," said Brother Rabbit, "since I'm so tore up with grief and all, I guess I'll let you dig it. But I better stay here and tell you how deep to dig it." So all the frogs went and got their frog shovels and got in a circle around Brother Coon, who was just lying there playing dead. They started to dig, and they dug, and they dug, and they dug, and old Brother Coon was going further and further down as the grave got deeper and deeper, and the frogs were going down with him. When the grave was deep, the bullfrog jumped up on Brother Coon's chest and yelled out of the grave to Brother Rabbit, "Is it deep enough? Is it deep enough? Is it deep enough?" And the little frogs peeped. "Is it deep enough? Is it deep enough? Is it deep enough?" "Well," said Brother Rabbit, "can you jump out?" The bullfrog looked up and said, "Yes, we can. Yes, 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 we can." "Well, then it ain't deep enough. Dig it deeper," said Brother Rabbit. So the frogs dug, and they dug, and they dug. When that grave was 12 feet deep, and old Brother Coon was just lying there, the bullfrog thought it was deep enough, so he hopped up on Brother Coon's chest and yelled up out of the grave, "Is it deep enough? Is 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 it deep enough?" Brother Rabbit said, "Well, can you jump out?" And the frogs looked up, and the bullfrog said, "Believe we can, believe we can, believe we can. Believe we can, believe we can, believe we can." "Well, then it ain't deep enough," said Brother Rabbit. "Dig it deeper." And the frogs kept digging, and they dug, and they dug, and they dug. That grave was 15 feet deep, and the shovelfuls of dirt that they threw upward fell back down on their heads. And the bullfrog just kind of climbed up on Brother Coon's chest and yelled up out of the grave, "Is it deep enough? Is 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 it deep enough?" "Well," said Brother Rabbit, "can you jump out?" And the bullfrog looked up and looked and looked and said, "No, we can't. No, 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 we can't." Brother Rabbit yelled down to Brother Coon, "Get up there, Brother Coon. Pick up your groceries. The grave is too deep to jump out of." So Brother Coon jumped up, started grabbing frogs and throwing them into that tow sack. Well, Brother Coon had so many frogs that he had enough to eat for this year and the next year to boot. And that's the end of that. Great American Folktale.